Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anfisa, I'm a senior product designer, and in today's video we are going to talk about how to create a truly working and powerful CV or resume. I've been a designer for over 10 years, and of course, I've applied to jobs multiple times. I was looking for designers, so I reviewed a lot of CVs, and while I was watching through those hundreds of CVs, and I've noticed many designers do the same mistakes over and over again. Mistakes when it comes to structure, mistakes when it comes to content, and also mistakes when it comes to how do you put your CV visually. So to avoid those mistakes, I have created this template that you will be able to download if you just follow the link in the show notes. Just sign up to that link and you will receive a CV template into your email right away. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through how to use this template, but also tell you a couple of secrets, things you need to know about the ATS and how to avoid being ignored by this ATS robot that sometimes mess things up for us. No more talking, let's dive right into it, and I'll see you in a second. Alrighty, so here we are, and before diving into how do we use Figma template, I also wanted to share with you a couple of high-level notes around what it takes to create an effective CV or resume. So here is a result that you will be creating using my Figma template. Very simple, very plain, and as you can see, just focused on the content. And this is essential for creating an effective, focus on the word effective CV. Because many designers, when they are creating one of their first CVs, they don't know that their CV will be going through the ATS, as known as application tracking system. Application tracking system is unfortunately a robot that many companies, especially companies that have more than 100 people in the company, are using just to process automatically the submitted CVs. Since many companies receive more than hundreds of applications, it's physically very hard for every single HR to go through the CV one by one themselves. So for that, they're actually using ATS to automatically process those CVs and then select only a couple of the most prominent and prospective ones. Now, the ATS, as you understand already, it's a robot, it's a software, and unfortunately they discard a lot of CVs, so maybe only 1 out of 3 CVs will get into the pipeline and get in front of the HR or a hiring manager. And that is why it is very important that you optimize your CV for this ATS. It means that your CV should essentially have only 2 goals in mind. In ATS, it's very important that any exportable PDF that you submit to ATS, you should be able to select all the text in the same order that you have created it. So basically the chronology is very important, right? And it will be selecting the text just like this, copy paste it to any text editor, and if you can see that the order of text is the same, then all good, then your CV will be readable. So the first test by ATS is passed. Now, as soon as your CV gets in front of the human being, such as HR or hiring manager, it needs to look very readable. And fun fact from statistics, HRs on average spend only 6 seconds to scan through your CV. So you need to understand that those people are very busy, they have a lot of CVs. For that reason, you should try not to be too creative. Like I've seen, this is one of the mistakes many designers do. They create those pop-up, beautiful, full of figures, full of color, full of text styles kind of CVs, and then unfortunately, A, the ATS doesn't read it, B, the hiring manager spends more time trying to process it and understand it, and hence this contributes to friction that you don't want to create to your scanning experience. So the bottom line is that you not only optimize your CV for an ATS, but also for a human being who is very busy and only has 6 seconds to scan through your CV, and preferably should be in the same very simple format. Now, here are a couple of the suggestions or tips for you when it comes to actually having an effective CV. First thing first, in terms of the layout, I do really recommend you to have a scanning experience. And you can notice this being reflected in this given example of the CV that is designed with my Figma template. Basically, you have 2-column layout where we start from the top, most important content first, experience. Chronology-wise, always start from your most recent job and then going down to the most old job that you had. So the experience is always the most important one. And then depending on the role you're applying, there are a couple of other sections that are important to mention. For example, if you are starting designer, Maybe you don't have an experience, you might want to replace it with projects you did when you were studying a design. Then you want to maybe prioritize as a second priority education, especially if you have the profile education. And then if you're transitioning to UX design, you maybe want to specify the roles that you had in the past that had correlated skills, for example, transferable skills, soft skills that are relevant for UX designers. And then tools you know, methodology you practice. And again, depending on the role you're applying, for example, if you're applying as a lead designer, there are other things you want to prioritize. For example, mentorship experience, for example, how you facilitated workshops, etc., etc. And finally, a few more tips around the content for your CV is that I always recommend you to prioritize the keywords that you found in the job application. For example, when you're applying to a job, you have read the descriptions, you have seen some of the keywords, what they're looking in a designer. Make sure you repeat those keywords in your recent job experience. That means that you actually need to tailor your CV to different job positions, different job applications, unfortunately. And also make sure that in the content section, when it comes to your job, for example, this one of the sections in the recent jobs, make sure you also prioritize here impact. So outcomes over outputs. Don't just say, I did XYZ project, I used the XYZ tools, but also mention what was the impact. And when it comes to impact, my quick tip here is that I always try to focus on 3 P's. First is product, and then people, and process. So how have you contributed towards either product or people or processes that have impacted your company? Alright, that is it around the content and what to expect from this template. Now let's actually dive into Figma and I'll show you how to use it. Alright, now as you've duplicated this Figma template, there are a couple of things you can update here in order to customize it for your own needs. First thing first, it's always recommended to start by updating it to your styles. I definitely don't recommend you to go for more than one typeface. So one typeface, but just different boldness and sizes of the fonts. And then you can also update the colors. Typically how you do it, you just go to the top right corner and you find here already have pre-created those font text styles and then colors. So by just going clicking here, edit style, you can change the color and it will be then reflected everywhere else. Right? I'm not going to do this right now, so let me undo it. And at step number 2, you can notice there are only 3 key components here. First is your key information. So you just go and update your key information right here, and it will be reflected in all of the headers. Then you have a couple of the variables for the headers, and then you also have bullet points, sort of information about your recent job. So basically the description of your job, and these are also variants. And the next step, you can go and select the body of your CV. So obviously there is the context information such as who you are, your bio, your header. And then there is a CV body, right? Where you mention your experience, education, skills, interests, achievements, mentorship experience, etc., etc. Now, as I've mentioned earlier, it is important the order in which you prioritize your experience, because based on the job you're applying to, remember the F pattern, F scanning pattern. Top left corner should be the most important information, experience, and then ascending by priority. So maybe in the layout number 1, experience and achievements is what you want to highlight. And maybe in the other layout, you can say experience and education is more important. Experience and skills is more important. And then you put achievements and interests a little bit to the less reachable corner, which is basically bottom left corner. In the step number 4, you have all those layouts you can pick up from. It's actually already compound of the CV with different layouts, with picture or without. By the way, regarding the picture, also be careful with it, because not all the ATS systems would understand the picture or would favor the picture. Sometimes picture is a red flag, because some of the hiring managers say they don't want to be biased by the picture, so they prefer only to read facts only. So pick one of the layouts that you preferred. If you go down a little bit here, you'll find some sort of a placeholder. So this is what you can do. You just copy paste those, place them in here. You can also later remove the dashed sections. And once you place 2 of those components, you can then select the variant you want to choose, right? So either with photo or without photo, just the context information. And then you can also select one of the layouts with just bullet points, with boxes, etc., etc. And if you need some inspiration, or if you need more information what to put in the content, because as you can see here, it's just lorem ipsums. Sorry for not being so creative right here. But I've placed an example of mine own where I've mentioned all of those points from earlier. And this is kind of everything I wanted to share with you. This is kind of it. thank you so much for watching it through. If it was helpful or useful for you, please consider signing up or liking it. I would really appreciate it. And if you have more tips or suggestions for me, also for the viewers of this video regarding how to optimize your CV for ATS and for HRs, please submit those in the comments down below. I would really appreciate it. Other than that, hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next videos. Bye!